Hey, it's Chris. Recently, I cleaned out my office, including cleaning off my desk for the first time in a long time. When I saw the surface of the desk without a monitor stand, without any hard drives, accessories, just pure butcher block, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna do something weird and I'm gonna just keep it as minimal as humanly possible and just use nothing but the iPad for at least one work day and see how it goes. I seized this opportunity to just start from scratch and see what would happen. And I had a sneaking suspicion that maybe the best accessory of all was going to be the decluttered environment. Obviously, with this much simplicity comes more focus naturally. So I started the day off like I often do, with some music, stuck on some Pavo Yarvi, with some notes, worked on a video script. And when I say I feel like it was easier to focus, I'm not just saying that. When I was sitting there and there was nothing but an iPad in front of me, well, I guess you can count my coffee as an extra object on the desk. It was like I had a physical focus mode turned on while I was working to accompany my digital focus mode so that no distractions broke through. Not having my triple device charger up in front of me and to the left of my monitor where it usually is, I didn't have my iPhone there tempting me to grab it and start scrolling. And also because I didn't have the studio display sitting in front of me, which I've been testing for several months now, I didn't have that extra screen real estate to stash stuff, which meant that there were no distractions. Only my work was on my iPad screen. And every window, at least for me, that I have open that's not work related ends up being a portal into a distraction. The next thing I noticed is that with this minimal setup, the iPad could be what it is, which is portable and flexible. So as soon as I finished working on my script, I was able to just unplug it, pack things up, and head down to the studio, set it back up again, read off the script without missing a beat. And the crazy thing is, when I limit myself to just using the iPad at my desk, then I'm already in the mindset of that is my work setup. So when I pack it up and set it back up somewhere else, I'm already in business. There's something cool about having my desk setup be my portable setup so that wherever I go, I'm already in a scrappier frame of mind, if you will. So when I arrived back at the desk, it was easy to plug back into that same flow and mentality that I had already been in, which when you think about it, you could kind of label as a compact efficiency. So I can be very efficient with an iPad because I'm so used to it, but it is more compact because I'm not making use of an external display. And what I actually realized, and I feel like this is kind of a big epiphany for me, was that the work that I do is the same work regardless of the tool set. So regardless of the app or the monitor or the accessories like the keyboard that I'm typing on, for instance, the actual work that I produce coming out of my head is going to be the same no matter how it's augmented or decorated. I mean, even if I use something like the remarkable tablet here, which is an e-ink tablet, which I actually do use quite a bit, it's the same raw information, however I put it out there into digital form. I should mention too here, if you're noticing the wallpaper and you want to get your hands on it, I've released some really great new wallpaper packs, which are linked up down below, including some freebies. So make sure to look for those. So when I am working on the iPad in this compact and efficient mode, I'll often do kind of a split screen setup using Stage Manager, where I'll have Safari kind of open in a larger format and just a note kind of in a strip over on the side. And I like to just kind of copy stuff out of the different websites that I'm finding and drag it over or paste it over as I start my research. And then I'll take that and I'll often put it into a freeform board where I'll then start to do some actual arranging with text, but a lot of handwritten stuff. Freeform's really become my go-to place to organize almost everything in my life. In fact, I'm replacing a lot of my productivity apps with Freeform. And if you want to know how, then you should definitely get signed up for the pre-order for Freeform Unleashed. That's my new course, which goes way beyond the basics and dives into corners of Freeform that you never knew existed. I have so many Freeform secrets to share with you, and you can get it for 50% off right now if you get it before the launch. As everybody who scrolls through anything tech related on Instagram or YouTube understands, most people are tech maximalists, even when they claim to be minimalists, probably because that's what gets a lot of views. But when you think about it, what do you really know about somebody with the super maxed out desk setup? Number one, that person spent a lot of money, not just on their devices, but on all these accessories. You don't really know if they're creative, because even if it's a creative looking setup, there's a good chance that they kind of just copied that and pieced together some cool stuff that they saw elsewhere. And you have absolutely zero idea whether the tech maximalist in question is productive, if they're efficient with their crazy setup. I'm talking about myself here as well, and most of my previous desk setups over the years too, which have featured ultra-wide monitors and all kinds of lights and sculptures and digital art frames and all kinds of iPad stands and desk felts and desk mats. But I did find that working on the iPad and only the iPad, which again is not what I'm used to, because even when I do work with the iPad, I use it in sync and in conjunction with a Mac or with an external display of some sort. So it's a part of my process normally, typically, rather than the whole enchilada. So working with just the iPad means that the workflow does change a little bit, but I kind of like that because it let the iPad, again, really shine. When I'm using a Mac, I don't think about how I'm doing stuff. I just do it the way that there is to do it. But with the iPad, I can rip the screen off, I can just hold it while I'm doing some handwritten notes, and when I'm done, I can just slap it back on the Magic Keyboard and get back to typing or browsing. So I did find that there was a little bit of a learning curve, so to speak, and I mean like a minor one, because I'm very fluent in iPad, let's say. But whereas on the Mac, I'm used to taking a screenshot of something or doing a screen recording and just dragging it straight into Final Cut Pro. Here, there's a different way to get that into Final Cut Pro because it's super easy to get stuck in a rut. And if there's anything I learned from this experience, it's that it's good to get outside of the comfort zone. It's so easy to just get into a state where you don't challenge yourself and you sort of just coast. And when you coast, that's when things can go wrong. You know, you kind of get lazy and other people are going to surpass you, or you're not going to discover something that you would have if you had had a little more adversity in your setup. So I guess what I'm saying is I felt like I limited myself by just using an iPad, but by doing so, those limits sort of unleashed a new realm of creativity in my just regular work. And actually, aside from just a boost in my creativity, I think there was a boost in satisfaction in doing this because yes, I could work with a lot of the top of the line stuff that I have laying around. And it's not like the iPad Pro isn't top of the line, but by constraining myself to using something that I wouldn't normally, there were a few instances where I actually had to think outside the box a little bit. And that actually made me come up with a better final product for my course that I was working on, for the script that I was working on that day. I actually enjoyed this so much that I may end up doing this more long-term. And so I've got another desk downstairs where I moved some of the monitors and stuff. And so maybe I'll just use that as kind of a B area to work. And this will be my A area where I have more constraints in place. Because if I figure out how to do my best work under these particular conditions, then nothing can limit me. Like if I go on the road and I unpack with the same setup that I use every day while I'm in the office, then I'm actually going to be, I think, in a better place when I'm out there, more efficient when I'm out there, because that's what I'm used to. That's what I'm good at. So I'm really interested in exploring this. And actually, I may turn this into a course at some point. I've been toying with it for a while, but Apple and minimalism, because number one, it goes well with the productivity thing, right? I make the productivity course, if you're unfamiliar with it, get more done in less time with less burnout in the Apple ecosystem. Over 700 people have bought it and loved it already. But digital minimalism is something that could enhance your productivity, but they have different goals. Productivity is about managing your time and your resources to accomplish more, to do more. But minimalism is about stripping away all that's unnecessary and just focusing on what matters. So you can see they're different, but there's some overlap. One of my business partners actually said something pretty interesting that's sort of tangentially related to this. He said the way that he ended up thinking about wealth over the years was how much time he could go without having to work. And at first it was like a couple days, and then it was weeks, and then it was months, you know, and you can see where that was headed. And he considered that to be wealth rather than expensive cars or vacations or, you know, a house, whatever the things might be. And here, as we're talking about just using the essentials and minimalism, which this quote unquote desk setup, if you can even call it that, really exemplifies, is also a way of thinking about freedom of sorts. If you're not constantly thinking about, well, what other accessory do I need or more likely want in order to accomplish what? Not necessarily your work, but to accomplish having a cool looking desk setup that you can maybe show off. Freedom. That's a really good word to describe, I think, the underlying vibe that I got from this setup. It was like going out to the countryside and just seeing nothing but prairie in front of you, you know, but on desk form. You can spread out a little bit. So that's it for today's video. I'm thinking about doing the same sort of video with a Mac and seeing how maybe the new MacBook Air treats me with just the MacBook Air and nothing else. So subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out the new course, Freeform Unleash. That is going to be so cool. Cannot wait to get that in people's hands. There's been a lot of pre-orders already, so reserve your spot for 50% off linked up down below, and check out the old course, both of which will help you really know how to get more out of the Apple ecosystem.